So now we are going to chapter 3. So in chapter 1, we learned how to solve different kinds of quadratic equations, for example, by using the quadratic formula and using the calculator program. So if you found out, like we solved so many equations in chapter 1, you found out that some quadratic equation have two roots, like two answers. Some have only one root, and some will have no real root, I would say. Okay, if you have no real root, then if you press it in your formula 1, then it will encounter a math error. Okay, so why would that happen? Like, why some equation have two roots, some only one root, or even zero real root? Okay, so let's take a look. It's all about the value of this. Okay, it's because of the value of b squared minus 4ac. So you remember the quadratic formula is like this. Okay, so which means that this part is controlling how many roots or how many answers does the quadratic equation has. And then we defined b squared minus 4ac as delta. Okay, so when delta is greater than 0, it means that the quadratic equation have two distinct real roots. Okay, distinct means they are different. Okay, two distinct real roots. And if delta equals 0, it means that it only have one real root, or you can say repeated roots. And this one is a typo. If delta is smaller than 0, then it has 0 real roots, or you can say the roots are complex roots. Okay, which means the roots are complex number. Okay, those with I, like the one we learned in last chapter. And then when delta is greater or equals 0, which means the equation have real root, but we don't know whether there are one real root or two distinct real root. Okay, so we can look at the example in part A. So for example, for the first equation, 4x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0, when you press the calculator program, you will know that x equals 1.5. So that's the situation for delta equals 0, okay, because it only has one real root. And for the second one, x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. So you will press, okay, you will got the result from the calculator program that x equals -1 or -2, which correspond to the situation of delta greater than 0, since it got two distinct real roots. And for x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0, when you press the program, okay, again, I want the output, I want the 5th, 6th, and 7th output, and you will got the result like this. Okay, so this one is complex root, which means delta equals 0. And here comes the second advantage of using the calculator program, because if you input this equation into formula 01, it will give you math error. Okay, since it's complex root, right? But this program can also cope with situation of the complex root. Okay, so it can still display, oh, the root is -2 plus or minus I. So it's quite good. Okay, so let's go to the question. Example 1. So determine the number of roots of the following equation. So we found the value of delta, right? Okay, so for part A, delta equals b squared minus 4ac. So this time A is 1, okay, because 1x squared. B is 4x, and then c, which is the constant term, is also 4. So delta equals b squared minus 4ac. So plug in the number, then you will get 0, which means it only have one real root. Okay, so let's go to, you can try part D. Okay, you can pause the video and then do it, and then like you can replay it when you finish it to check the answer. So for this one, A is 36, B is 0, C is -81. So the delta, plug in back the number and press the calculator, you would have 11664. Okay, so you need to explain. Oh, so this is greater than 0. So you have two distinct real root. Okay, so remember in exam you must write two distinct real root. Don't just write two real root. And I would encourage you to explain. Oh, it's greater than 0. So two distinct real root. Okay, so don't miss the two parts that are highlighted in green. Okay, so for example 2, so given that x squared minus 2x plus k equals 0 has two distinct real roots, so find the range of values of k. So two distinct real roots means delta greater than 0, so b squared minus 4ac greater than 0, so plug in the number, negative 2 bracket square minus 4 times 1 times k greater than 0. So you solve this inequality, which will give you k smaller than 1. Got it? Okay, here comes part B. Okay, so you will do part C and part E on your own, and then I will do part B together. So given that this equation have real root, so you have to translate this phrase into mathematical language. Has real roots, okay? As taught in page 1, it means that delta is greater than or equals 0. Okay, so let's see. What's the A in this quadratic equation? A is 2, right? And B is the coefficient of x, so it's negative 1. And C is the constant term, like the term or terms without x, so it's k minus 3. Okay, C is k minus 3. So once you got the number, then you just plug in it and solve the inequality. So it will give you the answer of k smaller than or equals to 25 over 8. So you can try the following questions and I will give you the numerical answer to check it. So this one is the answer for part C, and then this one is the answer for part D. Okay, so I got a thing to remind you for part D. So you will come across something like this when you work with part D. So remember, when k squared is 36, k is plus or minus 6. Okay, remember the plus or minus. Don't miss either one. Okay, so here comes part E. So before we do part E, please help me amend the question first. So please help me add the word if the quadratic equation. Okay, so let's see. If this equation, which is called hx squared plus 5hx plus 2 equals 0, has one real root, then find the value of h. Okay, one real root means delta equals 0. So b squared minus 4ac equals 0. So 5h squared minus 4 times h plus 2 equals 0. So you continue with your computation, you will got h equals 0 or h over 25. So now think, are two roots applicable? Do I need to reject either one? So you will find that this is a quadratic equation. Do you still remember the first lesson I taught you quadratic equation? I said the coefficient, okay, the coefficient of x squared cannot be 0, which means in this case, h cannot be 0. Because if h equals 0, then this term go to 0 and this term will go 0 as well. So all you leave is 2 equals 0, which is impossible. So reject h equals 0. Okay, so h is x over 25. Got it? So you try this question, okay, plus this question. Okay, so you pause the video first, so allow you to have some time to think. So let's see. So this equation has no real root, so delta equals 0. Okay, so b squared minus 4ac less than 0, negative, oh sorry, be careful, okay? So A is 4 because 4x squared. B should be 0 in this case because 0x, okay? And C is negative k minus 7, okay? So plug in the numbers, you will got 0 squared minus 4 times 4 times negative k plus 7 more than 0. So I continue to solve the equation, okay? And then ask you k is an integer, find the max value of k, so k should be 6. Okay, so now let's check the answer for challenging question 1. Okay, so this question looks like those in quiz. Okay, so let's see. So the quadratic equation that we have now is kx squared minus kx plus 5 minus 5 multiplied by x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, and k is not 0 for sure. Okay, so if the equation has 2 real roots, then find the value of k. So let's see. If the equation has 2 equal roots, means repeated roots. Okay, so delta, yes, delta equals 0. Okay, so let's expand the quadratic equation first. So, sorry, let me erase this first. Kx squared minus kx minus 5x plus 5 equals 0. So maybe I will factorize it first. Okay. So delta equals 0, which means negative k minus 5 bracket square minus 4 times k times 5 equals 0. So you continue with your computation, and you would get this. Okay, so k squared minus 10k plus 25 equals 0. So k is 5. Okay, so the value of k is 5. So now it says Amy claims that the equation has no real roots for some value of k. Okay, ask you, is the claim correct? Like, is there any possibility that this equation has no real root? Which means, is there any possibility that delta is smaller than 0 in this case? Okay, so let's see. What's the delta in this case? Actually, you found it. The delta is this one, right? So let's see. Delta equals k squared minus 10k plus 25. Oh, so is there any possibility for this polynomial to be less than 0? So for sure, we need to have some mathematical sense. So you will find that this is actually equals k minus 5 bracket square. And you know, if something is squared, then it must be greater or equals 0. Okay, greater than or equals 0, which means it will not smaller than 0. So it is incorrect. Okay, because you can explain. Okay, you can add a sentence to explain. Because it will have at least one real root. Got it? So put a star for 1b. And you can do a similar question for part H. Okay. So again, it asks you to determine the nature of the root, okay, which means they ask you to find the delta. Okay, so in this case, delta is negative 4n squared minus 4n squared times 5. So you have negative 4n squared. So again, you know, n squared must be, so n squared is greater than or small or equal, sorry, n squared is greater than or equal 0 normally. But now, n is non-zero constant. So in this question, okay, in this context, n squared must be greater than 0. So negative 4n squared must be smaller than 0, which means the delta must smaller than 0. So what's the nature of root? You need to answer no real root. Got it? So I want you to know the concept. X squared must be smaller, must be greater or equal to 0, okay? But just this case is special because it says n is non-zero constant, so we only need to consider the case of greater than 0. Got it? So let's try to do this question, okay? So don't just play the video and then copy my answer because you cannot learn anything from just by this method, okay? So pause the video first. So now it has a double root, which means repeated roots, so delta equals 0, okay? So express h in terms of k, okay? So ask you what's the value, what's h, okay? H equals what? So that's the only condition I have. So I set up this equation, b squared minus 4ac equals 0. Okay, so negative times negative, so it's positive, so which means something like this. And then you expand the brackets. And then you will find that this can cross out with this. So you will have 4h equals 3 minus 4k, which leave you h equals 3 minus 4k divided by 4. That's the answer, okay? Okay, and then for part B, it's asked you, if 8h plus k plus 1 equals 0, find h and k. Okay, so you will know that this is actually a simultaneous equation, right? Okay, so in lesson, we distributed the program code for simultaneous equation. You please ask me to get the code if you do not have, and then enter it on yourself, okay? Because we don't need to do any manual computation for simultaneous equation anymore in Form 4. So we have an equation that's given by the question, okay? H plus k equals -1. And since h equals 3 minus 4k divided by 4, which means that 4h plus 4k equals 3. So you just solve this simultaneous equation, then it will give you, like you press the program, okay, it will give you h equals -1/4 and k equals 1. So let me reinforce this first. So in your DSE, sometimes your section A1 would appear simultaneous equation, okay? So if it is appearing in the section A1, then you need to write step for simultaneous equation. If it's A2, section A2 or B part, then you just directly jump to the answer, just like what I'm doing now, okay? You just say solving gives and then you press the program. So what should you press for the program, okay? So there are 6 output. So you press X and then press 1 since 1k, and then press -1, and then press 4, 4 and 3, and then it will give you these 2 output, okay? So let's go to question number 3. Oh, this one is a bit hard, okay? So there are 2 quadratic equations now. So equation 1 is called x squared plus 2mx plus m plus 1 equals 0, and equation 2 is x squared plus mx plus m minus 18 equals 0. So it says equation 1 has 2 equal roots, which means for equation 1 delta equals 0. And 2 is the root of equation 2, which means x equals 2. Okay, and for part A, find all the possible values of m and n. So let's see. For equation 1, if delta, again, they are asking you to find the value of 2 variables. So you will be expecting a simultaneous equation, okay? So by using delta equals 0, I set up the first equation first. So delta equals 0, which means that 2m bracket square minus 4 times 1 plus m plus 1 equals 0. So 4m squared minus 4n minus 4 equals 0. Okay? So, then, for equation 2, you know 2 is a root. So, we substitute 2 to x. Okay? Which gives me 2 squared plus m times 2 plus n minus 16 equals 0. So, 4 plus 2m plus n minus 18 equals 0. So, n is 14 minus 2m. So, you substitute n equals 14 minus 2m to here. So, it will give you, so you have two equations now, right? So, you can solve two variables. So, you expand this. And then solve this quadratic equation. It will give you m equals 3 or m equals negative 5. Okay, so when m equals 3, then n, look at here, okay, then n is 14 minus 2 times 3, which is 8. And when m equals negative 5, so 14 minus 2 times negative 5, n is 24. Okay, so again, because you have two answers now, so you need to, okay, you need to group it like this. So people can know, oh, when m equals 3, what's the corresponding of n? Okay, so don't miss the brackets. Because if you don't add the bracket, some people may misunderstand when m equals 3, n is 24, which is wrong, okay, which is not the case. So let's see. So for part B, solve equation 1 for m equals 0. Okay, so you can try out yourself. So when m equals 0, which means you have to take m equals negative 5. Okay, when m equals negative 5, then n is 24. So you substitute back to equation 1, which will give you x squared minus 2 times negative 5x plus 24 plus 1 equals 0. So x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. Then you just solve the equation. X should be 5, I think. Okay? So you just do the same for part C. Okay? I won't try it with you. So below are some past paper questions. You can try out yourself. But please cross out this question first, since it cross-topic. This is cross-topic question, okay? And it involves concept in Form 6, so just leave it out first. Okay, and if you want to try this question, please help me amend the wordings. X squared minus 6x plus k equals 0 has only one real root, okay? Because you haven't understand what does this sentence mean, okay? So tangential to x-axis means only one real root, okay? So here is the part for delta, okay? So the video will end here.